John McMullen will be out there on Wednesday, and we will be out there Thursday and Friday. We'll have the whole crew live from Minnesota. But now we'll get an update on the NFL and the Eagles from 97.3 ESPN.com's NFL Insider John McMullen here on the Sports Bash. John, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. This is the night. It's this new media night, opening night, I guess they're calling it, where the Eagles – this will really be the first chance to see how the Eagles get consumed by this moment, I guess.
No, I don't think so, really, because that thing's a circus ever since they opened it up. They sell tickets now to fans, and sort of that's the event where you see sort of celebrities and entertainment reporters and all those wacky type questions lobbed at people. So I think that's one of those sideshows of the Super Bowl week that drives coaches like Bill Belichick crazy. If we're up to him, the Patriots arrived today. If we're up to him, he'd show up on Saturday and not have to go through all this. But that's part of it. And I don't think it's the biggest part of it. I think from a player's perspective, I've been at a number of Super Bowls. I think the biggest thing for players is the family stuff. I really do.
Mm-hmm. That's what Barrett told us earlier, that he was just getting hammered for tickets when he played.
Yeah, and it's not only family, it's friends, it's people they know. In Bo Allen's instance, he's from Minnetonka in Minnesota. He's been getting hammered. Talked to him before the Eagles left. I think from their perspective, they know they got to go through this, and it's every day. You got to meet the media, and tonight is even more, as I said, of a circus. But I think they get used to that. I think the stress of making family and friends happy. And the underreported part of that is not only tickets. In a Super Bowl city, you got to find them hotel rooms, and it's last minute because you don't know if you're going to play in the game. You got to win the NFC or the AFC championship game. So I think that has always been the bigger deal for the players.
John, Barrett also told us that you get a lot of swag when you're a participant in the Super Bowl, and that his family went into his hotel room right when he first checked into the hotel in Detroit for his Super Bowl, and they took everything that was on they even took the socks, and he was like, "Come on, man, like they can't fit my socks."
Yeah, I think Stefan Wisniewski even kind of tweeted out some of the swag he got. Yeah, the players get a ton of stuff for being in the Super Bowl, and hey, rightfully so. It's not easy to do. And sometimes for certain teams, and other than New England, who seems to always be there, it's a rare occurrence. So it can be exciting, and things like that you'll never forget, even if your family tries to swipe it.
Does it remind you of Corey Clement's age, that he went out and got an Xbox today, that was his shopping purchase, that he wants to be able to play Xbox in his room?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you forget how young these guys are.
Did he not pack something like that? Like, did he forget?
Maybe there's a limited amount that you can take on the team.
I think it's one of those things where it's just easier to buy it. And if you have the means, NFL players tend to have the means. Even undrafted free agents like Corey make a lot of money, obviously, not superstar money, but to the normal person, it's a heck of a lot of money. Sometimes it's just easier to just go the disposable Xbox route. It'd be nice if we could all do that.
Yeah. John, one of the things we talked to Barrett about was when he played with Pittsburgh, they had not really had a lot of experience, at being there, and they played against Seattle, who did not have a lot of experience. So it was two teams that were, Pittsburgh had a lot of experience in being a Super Bowl team, but not that particular group. You look at this situation, it's different. When they played Seattle in the Super Bowl, both teams had not really been to the Super Bowl. Is that to you even a factor at all, that the Patriots have so much experience going through this, or is that very minimal?
I think it's a slight advantage because the Patriots kind of know what to expect, most of them. and certainly the high-profile ones, although the Eagles have quite a few players that have been in Super Bowls in the past, brought in a number of veterans who have that experience, but it's tough to translate it to guys who haven't been there. So I think maybe in the first 5-6 minutes of the game, you could see that kind of stuff. But when you get into the guts of the game, it's usually, your normal routine kind of takes over. So if anything like that happens, I think it's going to be very, very early in the game. But then people will settle down. But there's no question the Patriots certainly have a slight advantage from that perspective.
You definitely, have a better idea of where you need to be once the boots are on the ground. Like kind of like what we're saying, like, we'll be out there Thursday, Friday, but we really don't have any itinerary, nothing. We're basically like, once we get the boots on the ground, we'll figure it out. Whereas if you're the Patriots, you don't really have to say that. Like, you kind of know where, why, what, and how this is all kind of done. So mentally, they have that not to really focus on, where the Eagles are probably still, like Wisniewski, when he opened up his door, he was probably like, wow, I didn't realize this was going to be something that we end up getting. So that wow factor is definitely going to be more there for Philly.
Yeah, that part. And even the little aspect of arriving a day later, as late as possible. The Patriots, took it up to the deadline where they have to be there tonight for opening night, and they arrived this afternoon. So that's because they've done it so many times, and Bill doesn't want to be there longer than he has to be there. And they took it right up to that. Whereas, it doesn't, I don't think it'll matter, but it just tells you they kind of know how to do it, and they do it the way they want to do it. Whereas the Eagles obviously haven't been there in a long time, and this group will start to get a feel. Hopefully they'll be back more than once during this Carson Wentz era, and if that's the case, their itinerary will probably change if they do get to go back a second or a third time.
Hey, John, what did you read, if anything, into the 11 featured guys that are going to be at podiums for the Patriots tonight for this opening night versus the 11 guys that are up there for the Eagles? I noticed that Frank Reich, Jim Schwartz, and Doug Peterson all listed for the Eagles. Belichick, the only member of the Patriots coaching staff that'll be at a podium, and he'll be thrilled to be there.
Well, I think it just says something about the way – well, the biggest thing from a player perspective, let me say that first, is that obviously Rob Gronkowski's not on that list, so that indicates he's still in the concussion protocol. So you have to – even though he's back at practice, that's the biggest story of the week. Not allowed to interview until you're out of the concussion protocol, so he's not going to be there. And from the Patriots – standpoint, it's always, one voice, and that voice comes from the top, and it basically says nothing unless you ask him about the history of the game. Then you might get a dissertation. But that's the way they operate, whereas Doug is a little more freewheeling, and obviously Jim Schwartz and Frank Reich have talked extensively throughout the season. That'll continue tonight, and that's just the way they do things.
John, you wrote about it at 973ESPN.com about the week ahead for Philadelphia. When does normalcy kind of kick in?
Well, I don't think normalcy ever kicks in because it's weird. And one of the reasons Doug stayed out on that West Coast trip when the Eagles went to Seattle and then Los Angeles was – I won't say they thought they could make the Super Bowl, but I think it was in the back of their minds, and he kind of mentioned let's get used to this in case you have to uproot your operation, because there is no normalcy this week for the Patriots as well. I mean, even when you go on the road, obviously during the season, you practice at your facility, you do all the work, and then you travel to the city you're going to. Whereas here, obviously, the Patriots get to practice because they're the home team. They get to practice at the Vikings facility. The Eagles are at the University of Minnesota. So nothing is normal. I don't think normalcy ever sets in. You just got to make sure you get your work in as best as possible.
Yeah, and we just got this text message in. Guys, as a lifelong Eagles fan, I'm having a difficult time taking it all in this week and all it has to offer. I just wish it was Sunday already. I can't imagine how the players are dealing with this. A victory on Sunday will change the entire region for the better, I hope. I can't tell you why I think they're going to win. I just know that they will. But the fact is that here's a fan saying, I'm having a difficult time taking it all in. Can you imagine being a player when they say, hey, take a step back and take it all in. Remember the moment. It's really hard to do it in the moment.
Yeah, but I think players are different than fans, and they have to be. They're not quite as emotional, and they can't be. I mean, if you look at, take a look at what happened. I don't know if anybody watched the Pro Bowl, but if you look at, the way the Saints lost to the Vikings on the last play, and how the Vikings just got destroyed by the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. And then a week later, Drew Brees is throwing a touchdown to Adam Thielen in the Pro Bowl, and they're celebrating together. It's not that they're not upset about losing, because they are. But as a player, you can't be emotional about it. And if you're emotional about it, you're not going to be very good. You're going to be destroyed by any loss at any time. So I don't think from a player's perspective it's as difficult for a fan. And obviously everything is timed out to the minute for them. They get on the buses. They don't have to worry about traveling around and things of that nature. So I think maybe from that standpoint, it might be a little bit overblown.
Hey, John, you mentioned a minute ago that the Eagles are at the University of Minnesota, while the Patriots, they get the Vikings digs. But even though that's a shorter ride for the Patriots, there may be a positive for the Eagles. Can you explain that?
Well, the Vikings are closing down Winter Park, and they're going to be moving into a new facility, a new state-of-the-art facility in time for next season in Eagan, Minnesota, which is about 20 minutes away from Eden Prairie, where the current facility is. So it's kind of outdated, and that's why they're building the brand new one, whereas the University of Minnesota just redid their football facilities, so it's brand new. I'm not going to put it on the level of Oregon or some of those colleges that went to a ludicrous degree putting together their facilities, but it's a nice facility, and arguably it's better than the Vikings until the Vikings get into their new digs.
John McMullen with us here. We're talking Eagles Patriots as we're finally to Super Bowl week, and tonight, of course, opening night. Those ridiculous softball questions that you write about, and maybe even a real legitimate question or two. Who are the two podiums that are going to be the most crowded tonight?
Oh, that's. Who knows? Who knows? I think it would be, obviously Tom Brady, Gronk. From the Patriots' perspective, but Gronk's not going to be there. From the Eagles' perspective, it's interesting because I don't know if sort of the national media and certainly not all the entertainment people know who the good quotes are. But certainly if they knew, it would be guys like Brandon Graham, who's always saying funny things, and Lane Johnson, somebody like that, talking about his grandmother or something. Those are the most quotable, but who knows who they go after. They'll probably start looking for Carson. Luckily he ditched the crutches and cane.
Yeah. John McMullen here talking Super Bowl 52, and John, you are heading out Wednesday?
Wednesday morning.
John will be out there live from Minnesota, and then we will be there for our show Thursday and Friday. So we'll have the full team out there with plenty more on this game.
Grayson found the table, John. So we have the call letters WENJ are on the table at Radio Row. So
Are we near the Shake Shack?
Shake Shack. What, you thought I was kidding on Friday, didn't you?
Right. No, it's all near the Shake Shack. It's all right there.
Yeah, I know. It's in the food court.
Everything's in the food court.
I'll tell you, I've been in a lot of Super Bowl media centers, and they're usually in a convention center in the particular city. And you don't really have a lot of food options, so at least we got some food options here.
It's pretty interesting, though, that basically people will be doing their shopping, watching about 90 radio stations.
The regular mall
doing
people,
their show.
just the mall walkers, right?
But the fact that you're going to be having all of these former NFL stars just kind of walking around the mall there. They said there's a whole bunch of executives walking around out there and all sorts of stuff. So should be a fun time. We'll have plenty more on the game as Super Bowl week starts tonight. John is covering it at 97.3 ESPN.com. Tomorrow, as John writes, the Eagles meet the media at the Mall of America at 1:40 before they head to practice for the first time. On Wednesday, the Eagles will meet the media at 10:15 at the Mall of America, and they will practice at the University of Minnesota. Thursday, it's the final media availability. And then on Friday, I guess some normalcy kicks in because the media kind of dies down in terms of your mandatoriness to be at a certain spot. But we will be at Radio Row for all of those days. And then John will be at Super Bowl 52 Sunday night, and we'll be recapping it all. So plenty to get into the rest of the week here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, pal.
Thank you, guys.